You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Game, and the Royals eliminate the Orioles 2-1 as Bobby Witt Jr. for the second day in a row delivering the game-winning hit in the sixth inning.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. Chase is with me, Chase Brumfield right there on the other side of the glass, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline at 205-342-9904. We're with you the next couple of hours talking sports and more here on the Big Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM. WTBC, your home for Alabama sports. I'll break everything down for you here in just a minute, let you know what we got on tap. But first, I need to tell you, as always, this hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Member-owned and not-for-profit. It really is just a better way of banking, and I absolutely love being a member. And I think you would love it as well. Alabama Credit Union is more than just a financial institution. It's a member-owned community deeply rooted in rich historical values. Our central focus is empowering members, driving us to positively impact the community through financial success. We believe in the thriving connection between our members and community, and that's where member-owned and not-for-profit really comes into play. Find out the advantages for yourself. Go to alabamacu.com to learn more. That's alabamacu.com, or stop by and see them at one of their many locations around the state of Alabama, including the home office right here in Tuscaloosa. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, here's the lineup for today. It's a busy one, as is always the case on Thursday. At 9:30, we've got the coach, Ellis Johnson, breaking down SEC football. Then at 10 o'clock, it's D. Orlando Ledbetter with the Falcons report. Falcons coming off a huge win over the Saints. And interesting that they didn't score offensive touchdown in that game, but they won the game. We'll break that down. And then at 10:30, it's my pal Jess Spiegel, longtime sports anchor and host of The Zone at ABC 3340 over in Birmingham. As I said, your phone calls are welcome. 205-342-9904. 205-342-9904 is the number on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. Well, we're just 2 days away from Alabama's next SEC football game. The Crimson Tide 4-0 overall, 1-0 in the SEC, heading to Nashville on Saturday afternoon. I'll be there. I'm going up for that one Saturday morning. I'll be working here, of course, Friday at the Free, tomorrow on my radio show, then tomorrow night, WVUA 23 News, and then Football Friday from 10:30 to 11:30. So it'll be a long day Friday. Get back up early Saturday morning, get on the road, drive to Nashville, cover the game, do a post-game report, send it back, get on the road, get back probably into Tuscaloosa, I'm guessing, after midnight. Then catch my breath on Sunday and then right back at it on Monday. It's just kind of the way it goes in football season. But looking forward to that trip to Music City, to First Bank Stadium, as Alabama looks to move to 2-0 in the SEC. As I said, if you want to discuss it with us, you're more than welcome to do so. We're also going to go ahead and, as I said, we'll have the coach, Ellis Johnson, to break down the SEC football games coming up this weekend with his insight. And we look forward to that. But when you look at the games this weekend, there's some good games, don't get me wrong, but there's not that game that grabs you, just jumps off the page at you the way that Alabama and Georgia did last week. I mean, that's a game where, let's be honest, everybody was tuned in around the country. It doubled up the ratings of any other game that was played on Saturday from a television standpoint. Because a game like that, not only does it have the interest, of course, of SEC people, but also it has the interest of people around the country. And I'll break it down for you. 11.99 million viewers for Georgia and Alabama. Oklahoma and Auburn was second with 5.04 million viewers. Colorado and UCF third with 4.17 million viewers. So Alabama, Georgia right at 12 million viewers, nearly 7 million more than the second highest rated game, which was Oklahoma and Auburn. So you bet your bottom dollar that ABC is loving that, to have that package now. And you know that CBS had that main SEC game for all those years, and they don't have it now, and they're feeling the effects. You know, they have a Big Ten package, but it's not anything like the SEC game of the week. All right, the games coming up this weekend in the SEC. There are 6 of them, and there's some buys again, just like last week. There were 6 games. 5 of them are SEC versus SEC, and then you have one school taking on a non-conference opponent. This is the schedule. Alabama, as we said, is at Vanderbilt on Saturday afternoon at 3:15 on the SEC Network. Alabama right now is a 22.5-point favorite in the game. The over-under is 55.5. And Chase, I haven't gotten your thoughts yet on this game coming out between Alabama and Vanderbilt. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm excited. I think Jalen Milroe is definitely going to do better than what he did against Georgia, which is really scary, honestly, because Georgia's defense is a lot better than Vanderbilt's. I do believe the quarterback for Vanderbilt is going to be a problem for Alabama's defense, especially for the running quarterback. You look at USF, and you look at Western Kentucky. They've given fits to Alabama's defense, so I think it's going to be very interesting. I do have Alabama winning by a favorable margin, but it's not going to be like the blowouts we've seen like under Nick Saban.
Yeah, Diego Pavia is a problem. There's no doubt about it. That quarterback is tough. He can hurt you with his legs. He can throw it well enough. We saw him last year when he really kind of came on the national scene as the head coach, as the quarterback, I should say, at New Mexico State, and then went down to Auburn and just laid a whipping on them. And then his head coach, Jerry Kill, resigned at New Mexico State, wound up as assistant to Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, and Diego Pavia went with him. And he gives them a toughness and a little bit of an edge to them. But that again is at 3:15 on the SEC Network. Other games: number 9 Missouri at number 25 Texas A&M. That's a game that has a lot of interest. And can Missouri go into College Station and get the win? 11 a.m. on ABC. And then Auburn is at Georgia. Of course, that's probably a game that will have a lot of eyeballs on it. The rivalry, the oldest rivalry in the South. That's at 2:30 on ABC. Ole Miss is at South Carolina. That's also at 2:30 on ESPN. Tennessee is at Arkansas Saturday night, 6:30 on ABC. And then UCF at Florida. That's the game that doesn't, as we said, not SEC versus SEC. Florida hosting UCF 6:45 Saturday night on the SEC Network. That's a big game for Billy Napier. Already has lost to Miami. And, under the gun at home, if he loses to Gus Malzahn and the Central Florida football team, that could really be another, big reason that Florida fans are wanting to get rid of him. So that's a big game for Billy Napier. I can tell you that right now. So that's your schedule. And, we'll break down those games with Ellis Johnson come up at 9:30. Right now, we're going to kick off our phone calls. We're going to start it out with RV, and then we'll get to Tom. Good morning, RV.
Hey, Gary. How are you this morning, my friend?
Doing well, thank you.
Hey, good. Before I talk about Alabama football a little bit, I found out the real reason that you're going to Nashville.
All right, let me know what it is.
Well, I mean, you've become well known for your karaoke singing.
Oh, with my singing, yeah.
I think you're trying to get a record contract.
It would be nice, RV, if I had an opportunity to go up there and get out in the entertainment district and hang out. And, I think a lot of people, I know you don't, but I know a lot of people believe that when I go to these games, that there's some socializing involved, but there is none. Like I said, I'll leave Saturday morning. We'll drive straight to the game. We'll cover the game. We'll do the post game, interviews. I'll go down on the field and shoot a couple of stand-ups, put a story together, send that story back, get in the car, drive back to Tuscaloosa, get to the station, unload the equipment, go home, and hopefully get in bed by about 1 a.m. So that'll be.
Yeah.
But
I hear you. Well, there's a couple of things I want to mention. One is when it comes to Alabama football, of course, fabulous win over Georgia anytime you beat Georgia. And, of course, Georgia made such great adjustments at the half. What concerns me the most is that Georgia made adjustments, and Alabama did not seem to make any adjustments or changes to their adjustments. It seemed like we kind of stuck with the same game plan in the second half as we had in the first half. What do you think about the lack of adjustments on our part in the second half to their adjustments?
Well, RV, I think I might have talked about this a week or two ago about listening to the defense coordinator for Miami talk about how you plan for what you've seen on video all week, and then when you go out there, more times than not, the offense is going to do something that you haven't seen. So you got to adjust in game. And then if you get adjusted to it, more than likely they'll wind up going back to what you saw on film. So it is a game of adjustments. And, but I don't know that I see it that way, RV. I look at the reality of it, and I know people say, you take your foot off the gas, and what happened, I think, to some degree, is that Georgia's a really good team, and I think we were all shocked that it was 28-0, 12 and a half minutes to go in the second quarter. It just wasn't going to continue that way. They're not going to lay down, and they kind of got their bearings. They did adjust to what Alabama was doing, and you say, well, why didn't Alabama adjust? But I don't know. When you're up 30-7 at half. What are you supposed to adjust to, RV? I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I don't know. You probably go into halftime and just say we're going to continue doing what we're doing, and then Georgia comes out and they're able to extend drives by going for it on fourth down. Your defense is out there a lot, and I don't think that Alabama purposely said, well, we want to go 3 and out on offense. So I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I'm sure they were trying to call plays that they thought would be effective against what Georgia was doing defensively. But Georgia, much like Alabama did to open the game, Georgia kind of got a hold of the game. So that's the way I see it. I see it more just as Georgia played better. And I'm sure Alabama did make some adjustments once Georgia did some things to try to take away the perimeter runs and some things that they were doing. But, they just weren't effective because Georgia kind of got control of the game. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, well, my biggest concern, though, was on Alabama's defense. I just didn't feel like we were, blitzing enough, put enough pressure on the quarterback. He had plenty of time in that second half to just throw the football. And then there was many times where he could have tucked in and run. Yeah,
that fourth quarter was a nightmare. But the thing that was interesting about that game is it was still 30-7 midway through the third quarter. And then 30-15 after they got the touchdown 2-point conversion late in the third quarter. That first half of that third quarter, it was all they could do to get first downs. Remember, they'd have 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, and they would convert either via penalty or just barely by a half yard. Alabama's defense was still playing really, really well. I do think they got worn down a little bit. I think, it wasn't humid or hot like it can be, but it was still, they were out there a lot. And Georgia was possessing the ball and extending drives, and the offense wasn't, doing a lot when they got out there. So I think they got a little bit fatigued, but it was kind of a blitzkrieg in the fourth quarter. But for most of that third quarter, Georgia was all they could do to get first downs, and they finally got that touchdown, got it to 30-15. I was surprised Kirby went for 2 there, but he did. And that was a big 2-point conversion because it still feels a lot different between 30-13, which is still a 3-score game. And then 30-15 is a 2-score game. So, and then in the fourth quarter, yeah, you're right. They took, until Alabama hit the play to Ryan Williams in the fourth quarter, Georgia just absolutely dominated, close to 300 yards of offense and 18 points.
Yeah, the other little quick point I want to make is when it comes to if Alabama plays Georgia again, they always say it's harder to beat the same team twice. But when you look at Kalen DeBoer last year at Washington, they played Oregon twice, and they beat them twice.
Sure did.
So he made some adjustments in that second game. So if we play Georgia again, I think DeBoer will have a plan.
Oh, I don't have any doubt. And I mean, I keep hearing all the Georgia fans saying that Alabama didn't want Georgia again, and we want another crack at Alabama. If I were a Georgia fan, maybe that's just whistling past the graveyard, because I'd be thinking, I hope we play somebody other than Alabama, because they beat everybody else. They beat everybody else, but Alabama. So
that's right.
We'll
all right,
see.
man. Have a great day.
Thank you, RV. Appreciate you. And we're going to go ahead and get to Tom before the break, because we got time. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Gary, I tell you, is there a fan base that whistles any louder going by the graveyard than Georgia? I don't think I've ever heard one.
Not this week. They've been, boy, they took that from, when it was 28-0, they were sitting there ready to fire Kirby. And then after they came back, and then after the game, they had a chance to let it marinate a little bit. Now they're convinced that if the game were, 62 minutes instead of 60, they would won. And they're convinced that if they play Alabama again, they figured them out. But, here's the thing. After all that happened in that game, they took the lead. They gave it back the very next play, and they still had a chance to win the game. It wasn't like they didn't. They were down there at the 20-something yard line at the end of the game, and Alabama made another play to beat them.
It took another hero play to win it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you still had an opportunity, because everything happened so fast. Georgia's down, 33 to, whatever it was, 27 or whatever, and 28, and they scored on one play, and then Alabama scored on one play, and they got the ball back. There was still 2 minutes and something to go in the game. You still had a chance to win the game.
They were moving.
All I know is
I want to bring this up.
Yeah.
The number one adjustment that Georgia made, and it turns out it was genius for the defensive move it was, and that was put Jalen Milroe on the bench and leave him there just about the whole second half. And I think that's what they said when they went into halftime, what we going to do. And I think that coaching staff said, well, we ain't going to be able to do nothing if we don't put Milroe on the bench. He's killing us. And so Kirby said, you know what? We're 4th down in it for the rest of the day. I don't care if we're on our 22, their 22, or whatever it is. We're going for it on 4th down, and we're going to do something's going to happen one way or the other.
No, that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did, and that's what a confident coach can do.
And I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Well, it was
piece of coaching,
because he wanted to try to still win the game, and he didn't.
Yeah,
and he's secure enough.
Well, I mean, they didn't drive all the way over here to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a great coach, and he didn't care at that point if we lose by 40 or we lose by 4. What's the difference?
What did he have to lose at that point? If he didn't stop Milroe some kind of way, and he knew he wasn't going to be able to do it physically on the field, so they did the next best thing. They said, look, we're going to play offense, play defense.
Well, they did it. They got back in the game, and he threw caution to the wind.
Now, here's what I got for Coach Ellis, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I think what Alabama needs to do, with that quarterback being as proficient as he is at Vandy, we need to really develop our running game and pound on them with our running game and keep him off the field.
Well, I think you'll see them go back to more traditional running game.
They run a crazy offense. Have you seen it?
Yeah,
they run a crazy offense.
I have seen it. They're a difficult team to prepare for, but I think you'll see Alabama go back to the standard running game. They hit Georgia with the quarterback runs a lot, but I think you'll see Miller and Haynes, be the focal points of the running game.
I want to hear what Coach Ellis says about that offense that they're running at Vandy.
Well, I'll ask him.
And does he think that that's the way you beat them is to keep that offense of theirs on the bench?
Well, I'll ask you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Tom. All right, 9:21 here on the Gary Harris Show. We'll get to the break, and we'll come back. We've got time for phone calls in the next segment. Then the Coach Ellis Johnson coming up at 9:30. This is the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Thursday morning. The Tuscaloosa City School System has been selected for membership in the prestigious Nationwide League of Innovative Schools. Their selection is based on educational leadership, innovation, and achievements. The selection comes in the wake of the recent turndown by city voters of a property tax increase.
Live from Walk On Sports Bistro for Hillcrest Huddle. That's Brent Jones each week as the Hillcrest Patriots march towards the playoffs.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course. Everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Para.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for
just best quality to our customers. So we just look at it as, hey, basically, we're your kitchen. You're just coming to eat in your kitchen. Taco Casa, under the biggest cactus in town.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather stays warm and dry today, partially sunny with a high at 86. Mostly fair tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow, a mixture of clouds and sunshine. The chance of a few isolated showers during the day. The high tomorrow afternoon at 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 72 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show. Touchdown, Alabama! Your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Gary Harris, Chase Brumfield, and we got Coach Ellis Johnson coming up here in just a few minutes, and we'll break down SEC football for you with the coach. And then at 10 o'clock, the Falcons report with D. Orlando Ledbetter. Braves season came to an end last night. Chase, I know you probably were in bed as early as you have to get up, but I was at the TV station monitoring the game as I was on the air, and it literally Braves recorded their last out while I was on air doing the 10 o'clock sports. Listen, I'll give them credit. I know we talked a lot about it yesterday. I think it would have been a disappointment for the Braves not to have made the playoffs. I would have, there's a big difference between saying it's a disappointment and saying that, they should have made the playoffs. I don't know if they hadn't have made the playoffs. I mean, you could certainly have an argument as to why with all the injuries. The fact that they did get in, I think was nice. They went 2 and out, 2 and done. They lost the first game 4-0, and then last night lost 5-4, and had a chance to win that ball game last night against the Padres. But I guess there is some satisfaction in making the postseason again. The Braves, since 1991, when they first won the National League West. In those days, it was to the National League West, and so this 33-year run that they've been on, they've made the playoffs more than any other team in baseball. I think this is 7 or 8 years in a row they've been in the postseason. They haven't missed it very often in that run, and they've won 2 World Series. I think the The question is, to be as dominant as they've been, remember beginning in 91, they won 14 straight division titles, and to only have one. I say only because when you've been probably right there with the Yankees in terms of Dodgers, in terms of the most successful, consistent franchises over the last nearly 35 years, to just have won 2 World Series and a little, in some ways is a little bit of a disappointment. You would have thought the Braves would have won more than 2 World Series. But they did make the postseason, and they were banged up. I mean, they had injuries, and then Chris Sale got hurt right before the postseason, and your best pitcher, and you were without him. And then Max Fried last night. What's disappointing about that game last night is the Padres only scored in 1 inning. That was the second inning, 5 runs, and they made that hold up. Michael Harris, the third, hit a homer in the 8th, a 2-run shot to make it 5-4, and you thought the Braves might come back and win. But it is what it is. If they had won that game, I don't think they'd have won a third game against the Padres. And then if they'd gotten past the Padres somehow, Dodgers were sitting there healthy and rested. Yeah, it wouldn't have been a very competitive series. So give the Braves credit for getting in the postseason. Now you just hope that you got all your injuries out of the way, and next year you come back healthy, because if that roster is healthy, it's very, very strong. It's a very strong roster. You get Acuna back. Michael Harris missed a lot of time. Albies missed a lot of time. Riley wasn't available in the postseason. Strider went out. So that team was decimated by injuries. So if they're healthy next season, they go right back.
We have exceptional pieces to mark your special occasion.
Visit Hudson Pool Fine Jewelers, downtown Tuscaloosa, or at hudsonpool.com.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour specials. And for the best Mexican cuisine in West Alabama, remember, the name is Los Tarascos, with locations in Tuscaloosa and Northport. Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside.
These changes within just a couple of days.
Text support to 511-511.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Tax fees may apply.
Follow Tide 100.9 on Facebook today to watch our live shows, read the great articles, and interact with Bama fans today.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show, and it's time for the coach, Ellis Johnson, for his weekly insight into SEC football. Good morning, Ellis. How are you?
Good morning, Gary.
You've coached in a lot of amazing football games in your career, including 2 of the most famous that we've ever seen in the same season. The prayer at Jordan-Hare in 2013 against Georgia, then, of course, the kick six in the Iron Bowl. But watching that Georgia-Alabama game, have you ever seen it, when you consider the caliber of the teams, a more compelling game for what that turned out to be based on how it started? I mean, it really was almost like 2 games in one, and then that end was what we kind of expected, but the way that we got there was just crazy. Just your opinion of what turned out to be a great college football game, an instant classic.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I could not watch the game live because we had so much power outages up here.
That's right.
On the radio.
I should ask you about that right off the bat. How's everybody doing up there?
Well, it's doing okay. I mean, in this immediate area, it wasn't too severe, but there are still people without power right here in the Clemson area for about a week now. Western mountains of North Carolina is just devastated.
Horrible.
Yeah, that was a terrible thing. I did watch the replay on it, though, Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, and got to see it and everything. It's just amazing. A lot of the things that happened in the game didn't surprise me, but like you just said, the way that it unfolded was a lot different than I thought. I couldn't imagine Georgia coming out that flat. And it just was hard to put your finger. I know some of it goes to the credit of the way Alabama was playing early, but I just thought Georgia was so off key. And then as the other part of it, to allow a team to come back in that fashion, I would say both coaches right now are extremely proud of their football teams, and they know that they can beat anybody in America on a given day. But they've got to have something in the back of their mind as to how they had no control over certain parts of that game. It was just kind of weird. But it was a heck of a football game, and I tell you, there's some tremendous football players on both sides of that football.
It really was. To get back to that start, because I think everybody was stunned. Alabama fans, Georgia fans, just casual viewers, that you and this is why I like having you on from a coaching standpoint. You know, you have a game plan. I know as a coach, a coordinator, you expect that they're going to do something that you haven't seen, and then you're adjusting in game and trying to get them back to doing what you have seen on video. But in this case, obviously, Alabama hit Georgia with both offensively and defensively. Georgia didn't look like they were prepared for it. What Alabama was able to do with the perimeter run game with Milroe and getting outside the pocket, and then defensively, Beck looked like he, deer in the headlights. What happened there for the start of that game? You said Georgia might have been flat. It looked to me too like they just weren't prepared for what Alabama was doing on either side of the ball.
Well, I thought they obviously made a few mistakes, but they were caused by the pressure or the athleticism of Alabama's football players. Beck was just really off key. A couple of his missed throws, though, I don't know because I don't know what the play call was, but it really looked like mistakes by the receivers.
Right.
Either not breaking off routes, not realizing the blitz, change the route, whatever else is in the package. But it wasn't all him. And the way he kept his poise and came back and performed in the second half was pretty impressive. But he was very, very average in the first part of that game and just didn't have a feel for it. The other thing is they couldn't establish any running game early. And I'm not sure that, they have a great running game this year. Not to get too far off on it, I don't know how good Georgia is this year. They're a really good football team, solid and so forth, but they don't have the offensive weapons that they've had the previous 2 years that can blow open a game at different times. And so they're having to play a little bit of blue-collar football. And when you got the kind of explosiveness that an Alabama has, if you don't contain that, then that style of play is just not going to work. But it's hard to put your finger on when players come out and they don't really play the best game they're capable of playing. I'm sure they had a good plan. I'm sure those kids knew what they were doing. But I think Alabama's did a great job coming out early and seeing some things that they could take advantage of. The two things that would say, though, when they got athletes in the open field, there is a little bit of difference right now in the perimeter speed of Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, it appeared to be. Milroe, he went 27-33, and the one interception that he threw, Dupree, the tight end, it wasn't a perfect throw, but it did hit him in the chest and bounced off, into the Georgia defender's hands.
Absolutely.
When Milroe throws it like that, and then, of course, they used him, he was primarily their running game in the first half, which they're not going to do that every game, I get it. But if he throws a football like that, Alabama's going to be hard to handle, aren't they?
Gary, he's 491 yards of total offense himself against Georgia, which is still a really good defensive football team. I mean, he was just phenomenal. And some of these throws he's throwing, it's not all little hitches and screens and dump-offs. He throws the 50-50 ball. And when he throws it, especially with a couple of receivers, it's an 80-20 ball. Very difficult to defend downfield. Throws it over the head when the receiver has that kind of position, back shoulders it when the receiver has a little different position. He is really uncanny with the way he can throw the deep ball. And if you hit deep balls with that kind of speed, he just kills you on scrambles and design quarterback draws. Because once he breaks the line of scrimmage, he's as good a running back as there is on the field.
Yeah.
But he's a really dangerous thing. The only negative I would say is Alabama, it's kind of like two-man party now, and it's either Milroe or is it Ryan Williams?
Ryan Williams.
Either one of them, if they lost either one of them for a game or two to a nagging injury or something, I think it would be a tremendous drop-off in their offense.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Now a word about Georgia, and, of course, Kirby Smart. the confidence that he exudes, and listen, when people say, well, they didn't quit, they shouldn't quit. That's why they got championship DNA. That's why nobody other than Alabama's beat them for 4 years. But what he was able to do, even at the end of the half there, when they got the ball at the 6-yard line with 30-something seconds to go, I think he sent a message to his team. They threw it 3 downs in a row and picked up about 50, 60 yards just to have a little momentum going into the half. And then Alabama got the unsportsmanlike penalty that was on the kickoff. But it was clear that he just said, we're not out of this game. We're going to play to win. We're going to go for it on 4th down. We're not going to punt the ball. And I thought it was just a remarkable coaching job from the standpoint of a lot of coaches, I think, that have been a little more insecure might have just said, well, we're going to try to shorten the game, try not to get embarrassed here, keep the score respectable. He was still trying to win a football game, Ellis.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And while they were having to kind of grind their way back, they were taking very aggressive shots and targets and so forth. So I totally agree with you the way he approached it. And you could see that the players, they know that that's who he is, and they know what they're going to be, their personality and so forth. Still, it's probably something in the back of his head. Why were we so flat early on? And, that'll be the thing that they try to get better at. And they usually come out, and they've been a slow starter for a couple of years. And not really been a hot team when they come out. So maybe looking at things like that. But I thought the way they hung in there was phenomenal. And it really was just an unfortunate thing when they hit Ryan Williams on that long pass to take it back. That thing was well covered, and they had help coming. I mean, the kid made 2 people miss 3 times. On one reception. So. It could have been a lot different if they could have just gotten him on the ground.
Yeah, it's one of the most. Yeah, that's what Kirby said after the game. He said the disappointing thing is, athlete like that, he went up and caught the ball, but like you said, Kirby said the disappointing thing was we didn't get him on the ground. You got to tackle him, and then you force them to make some more plays, and before they, and you possibly your defense has a chance. But that's why the kid's special. I mean, I don't know. That's just a different level of athletic ability to stop and start like that, pirouette, like you said, run by those guys like he did was incredible. But still Georgia, because Georgia scored to finally take the lead. Alabama scored on the next play. Georgia gets it back. There's still 2 minutes something to go in the game, and I want to ask you about the other freshman for Alabama that wears number 2, Brown, the corner, because Georgia's got a lot of momentum offensively. They're back down inside the 30-yard line. He had been picked on a little bit, but as a defensive coordinator, I want you to kind of take us through what he was able to do on that play. He had man coverage, but he knew, unlike in the middle of the field, that he had the end zone almost. The one good thing about being down there is the end zone's like an extra defender, because you don't have to worry about the guy getting behind you as deep. He kept his eyes on the quarterback the whole way, used the corner of the end zone, and played the ball in the air beautifully. I just, talked about what he was able to do as a true freshman to read the quarterback's eyes. I guess that's what they call the vision coverage or whatever, but never lost sight of the quarterback and then snatched that ball out of the air to win the game.
Yeah, some of these coverages down in that area, and I can't speak to it directly because, again, not being able to see it live, I'm very limited in what I heard and what I saw. But a lot of these coverages are bracketed coverages. What I mean by that, they will take the receiver to a certain point.
Right.
And then another, if he breaks this way or that way, et cetera, like you say, they've got sideline, back line, and they've got other player help. And it makes those throwing windows in there really tight. And if you make a mistake with it, and he did show he had great eyes and was able to make that play. But, it's amazing. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was in the class of entering freshmen. I was 2 classes ahead of the freshman football class. The guys 2 years behind me were the first ones that played regular varsity football that didn't have freshman teams anymore. And everybody thought it was a stupid rule and that kids were going to take too long to adjust and it was going to be too hard for them. Gary was in 3 or 4 years, some of these freshmen were the best players on the team.
Yeah.
And if you got athleticism, you got talent, and you're not, a little bit scared to compete, it's just amazing what these young players do when they come in and just immediately take over a job, take a position, and end up being a dynamic player on the top level.
Yeah, it is. And Ryan Williams still should be in high school. He reclassified to be up here. It's incredible. All right, we got to, have to move on to some other stuff. But 2 teams like that, You know, and again, if you're Georgia, you're just like, my gosh, if Alabama, of course Alabama's a great program, but if Alabama, you know, we don't play them, we probably wouldn't have lost. They might have a 60-something game winning streak. It's unbelievable. Do you think these two teams could wind up seeing each other again, whether it's in Atlanta in the SEC championship game or in the playoff?
They could. Very well, they could. I think Georgia's got an unbelievably hard track right now, though.
Right.
I just think their schedule and having this one loss hanging on them, you know, it's just like a dead weight just pulling on them right now, because any other game they lose, they're probably out of it. And not only out of the SEC championship game, I don't think politically they're going to let an SEC team in the playoffs with 2 losses. They'll do everything they can to try to keep them out. But they got a gauntlet to run now, and it's going to be very tough. I think they got a good chance, but I don't think they've got the inside track anymore.
All right, that wasn't the only compelling game. I want to ask you about Ole Miss, because that's just, I have a lot of respect for Kentucky, but I still was stunned by the outcome of that game. At home, at Vaught-Hemingway in Oxford, I thought Ole Miss would win the game. The first drive, they went right down the field, easily scored. And I thought, wow, they're going to run Kentucky here. And but Kentucky hung in there. They're really good on defense up front on the defensive line. And Kentucky got a huge win on the road over Ole Miss, 20-17.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see all of this, and I saw more of the end of it. What was amazing to me, and Brenda's doing a lot of it off statistics, was the success that Kentucky had defensively on first down. And you say, well, first down is not that important. Against Lane and against like Tennessee, these teams that like to boat race with their tempo, if you stop them on first down, it stops that tempo. It slows that down. It kind of takes it away. They have to have these successful early downs in order to speed up and try to hit the shots off of them. And somehow they were able to negate that. And at the end of the game, Ole Miss runs 56 snaps. 56 snaps. I mean, that's unheard of. He's had games, Kiffin's had games where he ran 90 snaps.
Yep, sure has.
And so just, you hold them to 56 snaps and you don't give up explosives, you got a good shot of keeping them off the board. And I think it was a phenomenal job by Kentucky's defense. Now, the offense certainly contributed because they stayed on the field. They had 0 turnovers in the whole game. So I was a little concerned also. The Dart kid, Jackson Dart, is a little bit loose with the football. And he's sort of like a little riverboat gambler. And when they're hot, it explodes on you. But he's got to take care of the football in some critical situations. But it was a huge win for Kentucky. They almost got them one against Georgia, and now they've beaten another. I think Ole Miss and Georgia were 2 of the 6 teams everybody thought had a shot, and Kentucky's almost beaten 2 of them now back to back. But there again, they're a team that's got 2 losses in the SEC already, so they're playing for a bowl game right now. They're gonna ruin some more people's season, but they're kind of out of it now.
All right, Oklahoma and Auburn. Really interesting game. And I guess, you have seasons where it all seems to go your way. And then I guess you have seasons where nothing goes your way. And Auburn controlled that football game throughout. Oklahoma had a true freshman quarterback. They only threw for 161 yards in the game. I think Auburn had a 21-10 lead at one point in the fourth quarter. And they got beat. Despite dominating statistically, Thorne threw for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game. But he threw a pick 6 at a very inopportune time, and Oklahoma kind of stole one. I hate that term because you earn your victory, but what is? It just seems like Auburn finds a way to lose these games right now.
But I don't know what I have to add to it, Gary. You hit everything right on the head. I mean, overall, Peyton Thorne has played some pretty good football this year, but he throws picks at times that just break you back. Then they had the other situation where they took him out. Going back through their games, Brown played great one game. Next game, he plays an egg, so they bring Peyton back. And that's hard on quarterbacks when you take the ball from them and then come back to them 2 weeks later and says, you got to be the guy. And there's a little bit of that, I think, where they don't have total confidence every time they pull that trigger. And they got somebody looking over the shoulder. The one thing I will say that Auburn still, I think they're number 38 in points allowed, and they're still in the top 50. In points scored. I think they're like 42 in points scored. And so they're playing, like you said, they're playing good enough football overall. They've got too many good football plays in a game to be losing to people like Cal. And then Oklahoma's a good football team, but they're not great. And they lose a home game to them when, like you said, they were up by, was it 21? I can't remember what exactly it was. 21,
yeah.
21-10, and somehow managed to let that slip away. So, I mean, Hugh's got to be scratching his head. They're finding different ways to lose games. And every time you put a plug in one of them and stop that and fix that, they do something else the next game that breaks their own back. They had two reasonably makeable field goals early in the game. They didn't make either one of them. They got stopped, I think, one time on the 1 yard line, turned over on downs. And then, as you said, they threw a pick six. So it's, even when the offense is on the field, they're never safe. And you just can't close out ball games.
All right, Coach. All I'll say about Arkansas and Texas A&M, it's the same game they play every year. It goes right down to the wire. A&M got that. Let's look ahead to Bama and Vanderbilt. Bama goes into Nashville. They're going to have, you've been there with Bama before, they're going to have more, half the fans, if not more. It's almost going to be like a home game. But this Vanderbilt team 2-2, but they could be 4-0. And Diego Pavia has brought an attitude. He's brought a toughness at quarterback. And they have, Tom's already called in and wanted me to ask you about the uniqueness of their offense and having to prepare for a quarterback like Pavia.
He is hard to deal with. And I tell you, they're painting this year.
Yeah.
I don't think Alabama's going to have any problem with them. I think they'll have explosive touchdowns that get it into a type of game where no matter how much Pavia can run the football and mix it and so forth and beat you with his feet, it's not going to do much good if you're 20 and 30 points down. So I don't think they'll have any problems up there as long as they're not just still, as long as this big win they had is not just still hanging on and they get refocused. That's one thing I will mention. They don't look like a football team that stays focused. It's too much dancing around in between snaps and focused on the wrong things. So I don't know how else you lose a lead like they had. I know Georgia's good, but I don't know how else you lose a lead like they had in that ball game if you're staying focused. So we'll find out a little bit about them. If they come out and don't play well early against Vandy, I'll know then, or we'll know that they may not be a real mature football team.
Mm-hmm.
Just very talented.
Yep, that's a good point. And Auburn is at Georgia, the South's oldest rivalry. I don't know. Auburn's struggling, but they've been in the, certainly 5 home games to only go 2-3. 0-2 in the SEC is very disappointing. And Georgia, coming off that heartbreaking loss, is at home. I mean, on paper, this is one you just look at it and just say Georgia is going to blow them out. But college football is funny. You see anything from Auburn that leads you to believe they could go over there and hang in this game against the Bulldogs in Athens?
Well, we just talked about all of it.
Yeah.
They're running good football plays. If they'll quit beating themselves, they'll have a shot. Georgia hadn't played a great football game. I mean, it was a great finish the other night, but that was a kind of a helter-skelter performance against Alabama, and they did not play well against Kentucky. And they really, ever since their blowout win against Clemson, they haven't been a real good football team. Not a great football team. So if they don't, play a good, clean football game, Auburn can play with them. And I think the game will be a lot closer than people think it will. It's going to be almost impossible to beat Georgia at Georgia. But I've seen some teams, that were not any better than Auburn that got it done. But they're not going to do it if they keep missing field goals, makeable field goals, and turning the ball over at times in the game to just break you back.
Interesting game in College Station, and we're getting up against the clock. But Missouri at Texas A&M. This Texas A&M team's just got that one loss to Notre Dame. They're unbeaten in the SEC. Mizzou, all they could do a couple weeks ago to beat Vanderbilt. I guess technically, although A&M's favored, Missouri's number 9 in the country. This is a good matchup here.
Yep, I'm glad you hit on this one. This one's kind of had my attention. I think Texas A&M is sneaky, maybe right in the middle of all this thing. And if they can win this ball game against an undefeated football team, and they certainly can, I think that you look at their schedule the rest of the way, they got all their toughies in College Station. Other than there's a dangerous trip to Columbia. South Carolina's a very dangerous team. But they've got just about everybody that's having a good year right there in College Station. They could back into this thing very easily if they can just keep playing solid football, and quarterback improvement's got to be there, and keep playing at least decent football at the quarterback position.
All right, real quickly, we want to run through these. South Carolina hosts Ole Miss, and if Ole Miss is going to have any shot at putting the kind of season together that they'd hope to, they've got to win this game. But South Carolina's kind of sitting there waiting on them.
Yep, dangerous game. This might be the upset week, and the only thing is I don't think Ole Miss will lose 2 in a row, but they better play better than they did last week because I think South Carolina's got some more dangerous weapons than Kentucky does.
And Tennessee at Arkansas is a Saturday night game in Fayetteville. Again, Tennessee, has been a juggernaut so far. But, going into Fayetteville at night, Arkansas has shown some ability to, they're a team that probably figures they ought to be undefeated, to be honest with you. Is this a game that Arkansas can be competitive for 4 quarters in?
They can, but I think Tennessee's coming off an open date, I think, and they're probably going to be about as healthy as they've been. Their defense is just too good, I think, and I don't believe Arkansas can score enough points. Petrino's really good, and that kid, the green kid, he's dangerous, but I think Tennessee's defense is playing too well this year.
And lastly, Florida goes out of the league, but with all the pressure and heat that's on Billy Napier right now, you got Central Florida coming into Gainesville. You've already lost to Miami. This is a huge game. It's a huge game for both these teams, obviously, but for Florida, boy, if they drop this one at home to the Golden Knights, it's just, it's a pressure on Florida every week, but this is one when you look at what they got last in the SEC, they need to win this game.
Absolutely, and I think they're a 2-point dog with the line that Central Florida, certainly they'll come in with an opportunity they probably won't have many more times, and that's to beat the University of Florida on their home field. So they'll probably get their best game, and if Florida doesn't improve and play better, I tell you, Central Florida probably going to beat them.
Wow. Interesting for sure. Coach, great stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed it, Gary.
Yeah, hope everybody's okay up there too in the Carolinas. And I know there's some people here in Northport and Tuscaloosa that led by former Northport Mayor Bobby Hernan that are sending a lot of supplies up that way. And
come discover better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather stays warm and dry today. Partially sunny with a high at 86. Mostly fair tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow, a mixture of clouds and sunshine. The chance of a few isolated showers during the day. The high tomorrow afternoon at 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 71 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for hour number 1. Before we get out of here, though, I want to remind you the YMCA of Tuscaloosa is ready for you when you're ready for the Y. 2300 13th Street downtown. I've been a member for over 20 years. I love it. I think you'll love it, too. Personal training, fitness classes, Silver Sneakers program for seniors. They'll help you with your daycare, whatever you need. Y Men's Club is there for the men if you want to join that. It's just absolutely awesome facility. Great people, the YMCA of Tuscaloosa. All right, this hour has been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. We'll be back with hour number 2, and we'll get it started with D'Orlando Ledbetter, the Falcons Report. Keep it dialed in to the
changes within just a couple of days.
Text support to 511-511.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Tax fees may apply.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Kevin Wyatt.
Some NFL news this morning as NFL Network is reporting that Raiders wide receiver Davante Adams prefers to get traded to the Jets, although he is open to landing with other teams, and he hasn't specifically demanded to be traded anywhere. However, Las Vegas will take the best deal. As for the Major League Baseball postseason, we had 3 teams advance to the division series on Wednesday. One team forcing a Game 3 tonight. That's the Milwaukee Brewers. They beat the Mets 5-3 on Wednesday as Jackson Torrio hitting 2 home runs. Garrett Mitchell with a 2-run shot in the 8th inning as that ultimately proved to be the game winner. Padres finish off the Braves 5-4. They advance to face the Dodgers on Saturday. However, Joe Musgrove had to leave the game in the 4th. Mike Schilt did not have an update after the game.
It's the Tide 100.9 30K Workday Payday. Woo! Win cash every weekday 8 to 5. Here's this hour's cash code.
128. Again, that's 128. The code is 128.
Enter that code now on the Tide 100.9 app. Click on the 30K payday button and enter the code for a chance to win $30,000. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, welcome into the second hour of the Gary Harris Show here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. Your home for Alabama sports. I'm Gary Harris, Chase Brumfeld alongside, and we're going to kick off this second hour with the Falcons report with Atlanta Falcons beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the AJC.com, D. Orlando Ledbetter. Falcons, of course, play tonight against the Tampa Bay Bucks, and we'll get to that one in a moment, but we're going to lead off by looking back. Good morning, Orlando. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me today.
Good to have you. I think we talked a lot about this schedule going in. You open at home against Pittsburgh. You're at Philadelphia. Then you host Kansas City and New Orleans. I think most Falcons fans would have taken 2-2. And they got that. They beat the Eagles by 1 and they beat the Saints by 2. We'll get into that game specifically in a moment, but, what about 2-2 at this point? I feel pretty good about it. You think most Falcons fans do?
Yeah, I think they do. They have to be ecstatic, actually, to be 2-2 and seeing that there's still a lot of work to be done, that there's a lot of room for improvement on both sides of the football there, with the hopes that they could have a competitive, playoff competitive type team here as the season progresses.
That Saints games, and I think if I'm correct that they were tied at the all-time mark between the two was dead even, and the Falcons go up one game in the all-time series, and they did it in a unique fashion, 26-24, but the Falcons did not score an offensive touchdown in the game. Defense, special teams, and obviously Young-Ho Koo was the star when hitting a 58-yarder to win it. But a weird game for Atlanta. But you know what? You don't apologize for winning in this league, and they found a way.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Gary got a muff punt, it turned into a touchdown, interception return on a tip ball. And then offensively, they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. They, drove to the 31, then had a face mask penalty that took them back on basically a 28-yard penalty, and that's killed the opening drive. And then they had a touchdown returned on a holding on a screen pass to Bijan that went for a score. So the offense kept shooting themselves in the foot with the penalties, taking points off the board, but they got in position, even on a penalty against the Saints, to get in the position for the 58-yard field goal. So, yeah, that lets you know, hey, they won. But, hey, there's a lot of room to clean up some stuff and eliminate some penalties, things you can't control. And that might bode for them, a good future for them coming down the stretch here.
Well, right now they got a chance to make a statement tonight. You're already 1-0 in the division. You go to Carolina a week from Sunday, which certainly looks like a winnable game. If you can beat the Bucks tonight at home, you got a chance to start 3-0 in the division, which would be huge. But this Tampa Bay team, with Baker Mayfield having found his way, they're explosive on offense. Should be a heck of a football game tonight. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, they always go at it. It's always a fierce battle. The Falcons went down there and beat them last year, 16-13, then lost to them up here 29-25. So, the visiting team has been the dominant team in this one, and I remember back when Quan Alexander came up here, and that's a while back. We had like 19 tackles. He just shut down the whole offense by himself and had a game. So something out of the ordinary usually happens in this one. I do think Tampa Bay has the upper hand coming off for a big win over the Eagles. And, they beat Detroit earlier in the season, so they're very capable. Being one of the better teams in the division and, trying to get after their four-peat. So I think it's going to be a tough uphill battle for the Falcons here tonight.
Yeah. But they are at home. The Thursday night game, of course, the way the schedule is now, I guess teams are just accustomed to it. Players are just accustomed to it. Both teams are playing on a short week. But does that change anything in terms of the preparation, how you get ready for a game when you play Sunday, then you turn around and get and play on Thursday?
Yeah, these games are, they've been sloppy since they started this, but hey, they're making money and they're happy about that part of it. They didn't practice. Monday was the walkthrough, jog through on Tuesday. Wednesday, they went for about an hour, a little quickie practice there. So, they'll be as fresh as you could be on a Thursday night game here. Kirk Cousins said, hey, I got to get a nap in the middle of the day just so I'm ready to go at night. Mm-hmm. So it's about nap time for him coming in about an hour or so. But, yeah, the games on Thursday night have just been bad. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Al Michaels gets disinterested, and Kurt Herbstreit starts talking about his dog. It's just everything but a good football game.
Let me ask you about Cousins. Clearly, like we said, he's got him at 2-2, chance to go to 3-2 and 2-0 the division tonight. Hasn't been great. Hasn't been awful. What do you think of his play so far? Has he given them what they hoped they would get for him when they signed him to this mega contract?
No, I think, I think they were hoping for a little bit more, but, I understand, when you're putting in a new passing attack, the time is not going to be, impeccable, and it's not right now. He doesn't know where his receivers wants the ball. He hasn't been able to get Pitts involved. I don't know if that's a him problem or a Pitts problem. He doesn't know. He knows Drake's big, so he's firing it away at Drake until they figure it out. He got the 12 targets. He's got a little something going with Ray McLeod and Mooney, and now you got to, mix that all into the pot and come up with a passing attack. Stay out of these long third down distances. Do a little bit better on first down, and put a whole offense together, not just pieces of offense. And that's where they're at right now. He's got 4 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, coming back from Achilles, trying to be fair with the expectations, but it definitely is a work in progress.
All right, you mentioned you kind of give the Tampa Bay Bucks the edge a little bit, so who do you like tonight?
Yeah, I'm liking Tampa in this one just because, Vita Vea's healthy up front. Levante David is in the middle, and they're okay with Woodhead back deep. Whitehead, I'm sorry, even though I don't think Winfield's going to play. So, and McGarry might be back for the Falcons. So they've had trouble blocking the Bucs for years, and don't think they'll be any different here tonight. Then they had trouble covering Mike Evans and Godwin. So, it's going to be a tough battle. They're going to fight, but I think the Bucs have the advantage here.
While I got you, I want to ask you about Julio. He was here. This is actually the second game he's been at. He was here this past weekend for the Alabama-Georgia game, and I'll get your thoughts on that game in a minute. But, he is a low-key guy. Didn't expect any kind of announcement, but is he through? Do you think there's any possibility that a team would look to sign him for another go-round, or do you think that Julio Jones is done?
Yeah, I think he's done. I usually check in with Terry Trubisky, his old coach here, and he kind of lets me. Last time I checked in, he was still hoping to play, but that was over in the training camp, right before training camp and so forth. Now that things have moved along in the season, I don't know if he's still staying in shape and waiting for that call. But either way, he's had a great career, and he needs to go ahead and turn his papers in so we can get that clock rolling.
That's true.
For his Gold Jacket Day in Canton, Ohio.
Yep, got to wait 5 years. So if you're not going to play again, you're right. Get that clock ticking so you can get in. All right, and I know you got NFL duties, but did you catch any of that Alabama-Georgia thrill? What turned out to be a thriller, turned out to be an instant classic on Saturday night here in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, no doubt. We had it on. We had a function, but it was on the projector screen. We had a reception for the Bill Nunn Award here, but we had it on. Georgia fell behind, and I just think Kirby Smart didn't do a good job of having them ready to play. And they had never been pressed unless you count the Kentucky game. So, but when you get down 30-3, you find the offense all of a sudden. And so that second half, we saw what they could be. It wasn't about Carson Beck's Lamborghini. They got punched in the mouth, and they were either going to get up off of the floor or not. And they did. They got up off the floor, took the lead, and then for some reason they didn't cover the rookie there, the 17-year-old, number 2.
Ron Williams,
you got to cover number 2. We're saying cover number. Don't do anything else but cover number 2. And sure enough, they tried to cover him, but the poor guys, number 12 and number 4, didn't do a good job of it. Yeah. And he scored, and Alabama fought back. That was a heavyweight fight there. Looked like a walk-away early on, but they went at it toe-to-toe, and, maybe they'll see each other again here with this expanded playoff.
All right, and lastly, Braves, I guess there's two ways to look at it, and I kind of want to get your opinion on the vibe in Atlanta. It's hard to imagine a baseball team. I know that, and it's 162 games, but still, this isn't football. They're not tackling, hitting each other, blocking each other. It's hard to imagine a baseball team could be hit any harder by the injury bug than the Atlanta Braves were. So I guess on one side of the coin, it was a success just to get into the playoffs. They limped in. They went 2 and done against the Padres. Chris Sale wasn't going to be available. It was only going to be a matter of time anyway. So what's the feeling there? Are the fans saying, well, we made it in the playoffs, that's enough? Or is there some disappointment that, obviously the injuries, you can't control that, but that maybe, they still, once they got there, couldn't find a way to at least win a game? What's the vibe on the Braves?
Yeah, it was kind of like, hey, if they can get in, they got enough pitching to find a way. And then when they got in, they're like, oh, we don't have our pitching. So,
yeah.
They kind of covered up the Sales injury and so forth, and that kind of hurt them. And then see Max Reed get bombed out yesterday. That was a downer. But the whole thing was, hey, if we can get in, the fan base was like, hey, if they can get in, they can get hot. But they weren't getting hot. I knew it from June. I was telling Cunningham, I was like, no, they're not. They're over. Why y'all keep telling us this false hope that they were going to, if they could just get in, they'd get hot. But no, it was a team that probably maxed out considering the injuries. And now, you got to look at, hey, how did all these injuries happen? You got to look at the training staff, too. Because, even going back to Soroka, all the pitchers, they come up and flash Strider for a little while, and then next thing they're hurt. So, you're not able to build any consistency or build any bank some of these pitchers and build a staff to carry you for years. So, and if guys keep getting hurt, is the reason for it. You need to, maybe look at where you're training, the way you're working out. You got to pull off some things. But yeah, the training staff's going to get a lot of scrutiny for me and pitching staff because all the pitchers end up getting hurt. I need to know why.
Is Snitker secure for another year with the Braves, or I know he said he wanted to come back again, and is he good to go, or do you think Atlanta might look at making a change at the managerial position?
Yeah, I think he's good to go. You can't really hold him accountable for these injuries, I don't believe, and he wants to keep going. He's a lifer. He's getting older in age, and he's probably time for him to sit down here in a little while, but I don't think they're ready to do that with him right now. All
right, great stuff, Orlando. We worked in some baseball too, and your coverage for the AJC on the Falcons is the best in the business. If people want to, get a subscription or get with you on social media, how do they do it?
Yeah, well, our website is ajc.com, and they'll digital subscriptions are a big push right now, and you can also find all our stories on Twitter at Orlando AJC, and our Facebook page is Atlanta Falcons News Now.
Thanks, Orlando.
Thank you, Gary. Have a great day.
You too. All right, it is 10:16 here on the Gary Harris Show, and golf is in the air. It's just perfect golf weather right now. I mean, it really is. this is the time of year. If you can work it into your schedule, I think it's the best time of the year to play golf. And Tall Pines Golf Course here in Tuscaloosa is open for business. Public play Tuesday through Sunday. They're closed on Mondays. Give them a call to book a tee time, 205-556-1232. They also have memberships available. That's Tall Pines Golf Course, a hidden gem in Tuscaloosa. Call to make a tee time today.
Give that to them each and every time they come and visit us.
The sense of pride that we have in the quality, the consistency of our food carries over to everything we do in the stores. That's Taco Casa.
365, 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow truck, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadway.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure you're safe on the road. Now we need your help to make sure we're safe too.
Alabama's Move Over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the road.
You just said that.
Did you say I just said that?
Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
Did you say you're cutting me off?
You earn, we match. Unlimited cashback match. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather stays warm and dry today. Partially sunny with a high at 86. Mostly fair tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow, a mixture of clouds and sunshine. The chance of a few isolated showers during the day. The high tomorrow afternoon at 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 76 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Find Tide on Twitter at Tide109 to keep up with show announcements, guests, and our reporters in the field.
It is 10:19 here on the Gary Harris Show, and we are ready to rock and roll for another segment before we get to Jeff Spiegel in the next segment. And trying to check the app messages, because what happens is they come in and then they come in a little bit later sometimes from my show, but I'll see them and I'll see messages that came in during my show, but I can't get to them until later. So I've been trying to update the app messages, but we really do appreciate all of our listeners, and we appreciate folks that call in, but we understand there are a lot of people that listen. Most people that listen don't call in. So we appreciate you going through our app and downloading that app, Tide 109, and getting in touch with us that way. Right now, we're going to jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline and welcome in Jim. Hey, good morning, Jim.
Hey, I see it in high school, but I noticed watching the replay when Bama went for two. Is it normal in college football where they went to an empty set and he had four receivers on one side and Williams by himself, that only one guy, Bernard, went out in the pattern. The rest of them just stood there like it was designed that way, but I mean, it didn't give Milroe a second option if he was blank.
When you talking about on the 2-point play?
Yeah.
I guess they just it worked, but I don't know. I'm not watching it right now, so I'd have to watch it again, Jim. But I guess the idea was to keep everybody in, to keep the defense drawn to the line of scrimmage.
That's definitely what they're doing, but it sure didn't give another option. In case
I guess it was ride or die with that play, and
now Williams was at the far side, and he actually spun his wheel and went down to his knees on the line of scrimmage. But I don't think he was. I mean, I think that's probably from him trying to just act like he's going out, because it would have been a long throw if he threw it over there, as the second option. But the other thing is, and I was just listening to George's radio call, and I didn't really catch this until the color analyst said it right off the bat. When he threw the interception at the end of the game, he threw it from the far hash mark. So that was a lot. And like he said, he goes, that's a long throw, because it's only, you're on the 20-yard line. Mm-hmm. So you're not throwing it way down. So that does that seem like the right play? I mean, throw it across, because that just gives the defender more time the ball in the air,
Yeah. Jim, it's hard for me to analyze it, not being a coach and not knowing exactly what, they were thinking of the ways that it, what all went into it. So, but I know I do know this, and you do too. All plays don't work out, but I don't think an offensive coordinator or a head coach ever call a play that they don't think is going to work, So, whatever reasons they do what they do them because they think it's the best opportunity to be successful. About all I know.
Okay, I just wanted to, one more thing. Does Ellis Johnson, I guess, he does realize that it's 12-team playoff, don't he? Because he said he didn't think Georgia would get in with 2 losses. I'm thinking, does he realize they expanded the playoffs?
Yeah, he does. I guess he's just thinking that maybe there's going to be a lot of teams that have 1 loss. I don't know. I would think that Georgia would get in with 2 myself, but this is the first year of all this, Jim. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, I think you'll have some of these teams, I guarantee you, at the end of the year, they have 3 losses. That'll be saying they should be in, crying, oh, look at who we lost to versus, I don't. The problem is you expand from 4 to 12 and you think you get everything fixed, but they're eventually going to go to 16. I know it's coming. TV, wants it. And then when you get to 16, there'll be teams at 17 or 18 that lined up say they ought to be in it. Unless you let everybody in, there's always going to be teams complaining, just like basketball now. They put 68 in and you got teams complaining that they should have been in. So it'll never, that part of it will never end. But I'm with you. If Georgia go through this schedule and they're sitting there 10-2, I think they'll get in.
Yeah, actually, he, used the reference. He didn't think they'd let a SEC team with 2 losses. And I'm thinking, there ain't going to be too many conferences that don't have teams that's only got 1 loss teams, with 12. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I just, like what he's talking about, when he said that, but, going back to playoffs, now, as soon as the Pac-12 gets their 8th team, whatever, they're going to steal one of them at-large bids, right? They're going to get an automatic bid, or how you think that's going to work?
Well, my guess is once they get to the 8 football playing members that they need, and, that initially they're not going to get an automatic bid because the new Pac-12 is not going to be considered, a power conference. It'll have the name Pac-12, but it won't be, I don't think it'll be constructed to where they get an automatic bid. So my guess is there'll be a group of 5 conference and have to, try to get in like the other G5s.
Okay. All right, then. Thanks for answering the questions.
Thanks, Jim. Good to hear from you. It is 10:25 here on the Gary Harris Show. And, the playoff, listen, I don't remember exactly what Ellis said. I'd have to go back and listen to it. I don't know that Ellis said you couldn't get in or you wouldn't get in as a 2-loss SEC team. I'd have to go back and listen to it. By the way, you can always go back and listen to it. Our podcast is available anywhere you get your podcast on the Gary Harris Show, and also our podcast center at Tide109.com. Chase does a good job of getting them up shortly after the show, sometimes during the show, specific interviews, first hour, second hour, and things like that. So, but listen, just because you've expanded the playoff doesn't mean that it's going to be without controversy. It's still going to have controversy. I promise you it is. When we sit here and name these 12 teams that are in the playoff, in December, there's going to be a lot of moaning and groaning and gnashing of teeth. Particularly, let's say that 8 of these teams come from the Big Ten and the SEC, which is possible. And that only leaves 4 other teams. That'd be 2 other Power 5 conference champions and then 2 at large. You could have really, and again, I'd have to look at it laid out. Maybe there's enough things in place to keep SEC and Big Ten from having 8 of the 12, but they're going to have the majority of the teams, and there's going to be a lot of people crying that they didn't get in. So eventually this thing's going to go to 16 now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But do I like it? I've been asked that a lot. Boy, I tell you, it wasn't that long ago we had the BCS, and you had 2 teams, and then you went to 4. I don't know. I don't really like the idea that you have a playoff and 4 teams get a bye. This is not, I think the playoff should be even numbered. That's why now at this point I want to go to 16 because I think should go from 16 to 8 to 4 to 2. The fact now that you're going to go from, you're going to have 4 teams that know they're going on to the next round and don't have to play. And you could say, well, they earned that opportunity, but at the same time, to me, that's not how football is supposed to work. I think football is a game where, everybody's supposed to play. If you get in the playoffs, you should have to play. And I'm not a big fan of the byes, but, nobody asked me what I'm a fan of. So that's the way it's going to work. I'm as interested as everybody else to see how it is going to play out for the first 12-team playoff in college football. All right, it is 10:27 here on the Gary Harris Show, and let me talk to you about my friend Jackie Houston Hyder Steam, and carpet cleaning. It's just the best in the business. In fact, I talked briefly with a text message with Jackie this morning, And he's so busy right now he can't hardly keep up. But he'll find a way to keep up. Quality work you can stand on. When it comes to carpet and upholstery cleaning, you need to know about Houston Heiderstein, which has been in business for nearly 40 years. That tells you they do it right. Give them a call for all your carpet cleaning and flooring cleaning needs, bathroom, tile, and grout. They can handle it. 205-5.
Now at PearlRiverResort.com.
Yeah, that's right where I need to be.
Don't miss Gary Allen. Live.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard has led to a lot of firsts for me. It paid for me to be the first person in my family to go to school. That education got me to the first day at my dream job, which I can still hold while I serve part-time. That job and the home loan benefits I got from the Army National Guard helped me buy my first house.
800-426-1886. 800-426-1886. That's 800-426-1886.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather stays warm and dry today, partially sunny with a high at 86, mostly fair tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow, a mixture of clouds and sunshine, the chance of a few isolated showers during the day. The high tomorrow afternoon at 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 76 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
Time on the Gary Harris Show, 1031. Welcome back in. Jeff Spiegel, longtime sports anchor at ABC 3340, host of The Zone, and now also has a great show on Saturday night. I was able to watch it after the Alabama-Georgia game because the coverage went so long, and boy, I'll get Jeff to mention that show too. And of course, ABC has the package. So, Jeff, I know you'd already mentioned this last week. It not only is it good for your coverage, it's great for y'all to have that package. That game nearly had 12 million viewers on Saturday night, my friend. It more than doubled up any other college football game on Saturday.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we got the Nielsen's back yesterday, and they said I think that 300,000 people, in the market, I guess, watched that game, and it was crazy. It was just a crazy. I've talked to so many people, and you hear from so many people from all over America, who watched that game, and it was designed, to put the SEC on a big stage. They're two, with all apologies to Texas, the two most elite programs in the SEC, and they put on a show. And my daughter, Kara, and her boyfriend went to the game, and we haven't really had a chance to talk in great detail about it. But I would tell her, you may go to a bunch of college football games in your lifetime. You may never see another one like that because it was just crazy, the emotional, highs and lows, from both fan bases. And, of course, Ryan Williams, Xavier Brown, two freshmen, making the two biggest plays in the game, and it was incredible theater.
It really was. I was there, and I had to actually leave the game a little early because I was scheduled to do a live shot at 10, and it obviously, wasn't going to end by 10 o'clock. So I went out, I went down from the press box, of course, just had to go around the corner and went up to the TV station so I could do a shot in the newsroom. So I was actually watching the end of it on TV myself, Jeff. But what, like you said, everything in a game. First of all, the way that Alabama came out scoring touchdowns on their first four possessions, Milroe was unstoppable. It's 28-0, and you're thinking, man, this thing could get ugly. But it never did. Georgia just kept within, they never let it get completely out of hand. Because at some point, even as good as Georgia is, and as much as Kirby's coaching hard, if it gets too far gone, you're not coming back. But even at 30-7, you sense that Georgia had something left, because right there at the end of the half, when the Alabama punted it down there to the 6-yard line, instead of taking a knee with 20-something seconds to go, Georgia, remember, ran 3 pass plays and picked up about 60 yards. I think the message was sent that we're still trying to win this game. And then brilliant coaching when Kirby just said, listen, when losing by, a point or losing by 40, there's really no difference to me. We're going to win the game. And they just decided they weren't going to punt the football anymore. And got to give them credit.
Yeah, Nick Saban fans will get the reference I'm about to make, but there are a couple of Alabama fans who work with me, and I said, and when it was late in the first half, and I said, who are they playing, Georgia or Georgia Southern? And they were telling me I need to be quiet because Georgia was finding some rhythm, and then in the second half they could not stop them. They could not stop them, right? And then they took the lead. I got another story. I've got a friend of mine who works at a cleaners, that I take my clothes to. And she had some allergy issues on Saturday, and she was dead tired by halftime. So she went to sleep. And she woke up to the sound of her husband screaming at the TV. And she woke up and she goes, "What's going on? They were up 30-7. And he said, No, they're down 34-33. And then, of course, on the next play, the magic happened. But it was just an amazing night. And the whole day, really. I mean, for the SEC on ABC, I mean, what a triple header. I mean, Kentucky goes into Oxford and beats Ole Miss, and then Auburn's got Oklahoma on the ropes, and then, the famous Kip Six, as they're calling it in Oklahoma now, that won the game for the Sooners. And then that game, it was just an incredible day, for our network. Yeah,
it was just a great day of college football, too. Getting back to the Alabama game, after all that happened, and then Georgia takes that lead. And, again, I'm in the newsroom at this point and actually standing there with a light on me, watching out of the corner of my eye what's going on in the game, kind of doing a live report myself. But, Georgia takes that lead and then, Alabama comes back, and I loved what they did. We're not going to we had 2 minutes or something to go in the game, down by 1, but we're not going to try to, take time off the clock and move down there and kick a field goal at the end. And, we're going to nickel and dime it. We're going to take a shot on the first play with our 2 best players, Milroe and Ryan Williams. And what Ryan Williams was able to do is the stuff that legend is made of. But I loved the play call. I think they had him. And they did send, slide a safety over there, but they looked at it and Milroe said, I got Ryan Williams up here with one guy on him, and we're going to throw up the ball and see what happens. I loved that play call, and obviously it worked.
Yeah, you like your chances in that matchup, right?
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Those 2 catches that he made, the one in the third quarter where he's juggling and everything like that. And the young kids don't get the reference I'm about to make. But when I saw those 2 plays, I immediately thought, and this has never happened before with another receiver, but I immediately thought of Lentz One and just how graceful he was and how the concentration on the juggling of the ball and then just the body control on the game-winning catch. And, just the grace. And then another comparison I've heard, too, is that Ryan Williams is Devontae Smith and Jerry Jeudy wrapped up into one, which is an incredible comparison. Here's another thing, Gary, too. Yesterday, and we mentioned this on the Sportscast yesterday, they added 5 names to the Biletnikoff watch list. None of those names were Ryan Williams.
Ouch.
None of them.
Think
Nick
because
Nash,
he's a true freshman?
No. There are no rules about true freshmen. All right. Nick Nash of San Jose State is on the list. Jack Besh of TCU is on the list. And then a guy from Troy who's having an amazing year, Devontae Ross, with 29 catches so far. I get that. But how can you add 5 names to the Biletnikoff watch list? I understand that he wasn't on the list to begin with. I get that. But how can you add 5 names yesterday after what we saw Saturday and Ryan Williams not be one of them?
It doesn't even make sense, man.
Doesn't even make sense. So anyway, so that was I saw that and I go, and I'm looking all through I'm going, I guess freshmen aren't eligible. No, doesn't say anything about that, and so that was weird. That was weird to me.
It's just beyond weird. It's just nuts. No credibility. That's the what criteria are you using? It's like like the great Don Shula line about Mike Shula when he was let go by Alabama, and Don said, I think they need to evaluate the evaluators. But
well, here's another thing that's kind of glaring too, and I don't want to make this an Alabama-Auburn thing, but Auburn's Robert Lewis is on there. He was on the original list. He's got 8 catches for 71 yards so far.
I don't think he's going to win it.
No.
Just nuts.
So that just blew me away yesterday, when I saw that. We had Dari Noka on a Zoom call, and Dari says, what, because he's not old enough to vote? If you're not old enough to vote, you can't win the Biletnikoff? And so I don't know. I can't figure it out.
Well, you may have to do an investigation on this one, Jeff. But hey, the game still wasn't over because Alabama struck so fast that there was still 2 minutes plus to go, and Georgia's back in position to win the game or tie it, and force overtime or go for 2 and try to win it. And that secondary, which had certainly had its issues, and the freshman Xavier Brown had some issues. They picked on him a little bit, but what a play he made there at the end of the game to seal the deal with the interception. Kept his eyes on the quarterback, used the end zone as an extra defender, and then just snatched that ball out of the air. That was a great play by the other number 2 true freshman on Alabama's team, Xavier Brown.
Yeah, he really did. And one of the cool things about what we're able to do with this EOG Rap show, especially in a situation like that, is that we put, interviews live, like on TV. And so I get to hear all of these, questions and answers. And one thing that kind of blew me away was that how he talked about how, earlier in the game, he made a mistake, on a coverage. And then, he got coached up. And then not only did he learn, it's one thing if you get coached up and then, okay, well, I'm going to learn not to make that mistake in the next game. But he learned not to make that mistake later on in the game in like a crucial situation. So it told you about, what a good coachable guy he is, and just what an incredible athletic play, to just reach up there and just take it away from the Bulldogs.
All right. Now we get to check this Alabama team for how they handle success. 4-0. Got through this first third of the season unbeaten, including a win over Georgia. You're now number 1 in the AP poll, and you go on the road to Vanderbilt in a stadium at Bank First Stadium where you're going to have maybe more fans than the home team. Certainly, the crowd will be split. But against the Vanderbilt team that's game, Diego Pavia is a terrific player at quarterback, brings toughness, brings an attitude. They have a unique offense. So, and clearly Alabama should win the game, but how much will you be watching in just regards to how Alabama goes about handling its business in this game?
Oh, I want to see if they start fast like they did against Georgia. And my thinking is, that they will. And not only will it'll be a split crowd and probably more Alabama fans than Vandy fans. Probably, maybe. Vandy's, having a decent year, but it'll be a small crowd. So it'll be kind of a culture shock. When they walk in there, because there'll only be 29,000 people there watching that game because of renovations that they're doing to Vanderbilt Stadium. It'll be the smallest non-COVID crowd that Alabama's played in front of since 1963 when they played at Vandy. And so it's going to be different. And so, it's one of those things where you're going to have to bring your own energy. Because there's not going to be enough energy there in the stands, to kind of, get you going like the week before. So, but I think this team is mature enough. It's got great leadership, with Milroe, Deontay Lawson on the defensive side of the ball, Malachi Moore, that they'll go in there and they'll take care of business.
Yeah, and you're right. I hadn't even really thought about the fact that First Bank Stadium is 41,000 capacity, but with that construction going on, you're right, under 30,000. So tickets are really going to be in demand. It might be a little tougher for Alabama to get half the crowd in this one the way they normally do, Jeff.
Yeah, it'll be like playing at Protective Stadium or something like that, and it'll be kind of weird.
It will be,
but it'll be. But I think it's one of those games where you're right. Alabama, Kalen DeBoer is challenging his team that you know what, you're only as good as your last game, and if you go out and stub your toe against these guys, and you're right, you're playing a quarterback for Vanderbilt who last year, if you remember, played for New Mexico State, and he body slammed Nehemiah Pritchett. He threw an interception, Pritchett picked it off, and then Pavia not only tackled him, but he body slammed him. This is a state championship wrestler from New Mexico, Diego Pavia, and he body slammed Nehemiah Pritchett. I've never seen anything like that before. He drew a penalty for it, but he also drew high fives and pats on the back from his teammates for that. It was one of the I guess it was one of the big visuals from that game. And New Mexico State beat Auburn in that game, if you remember.
Yeah, I do very well. I'm wondering now, because I'm going to the game on Saturday with this construction. I hope the press box isn't impacted. I hope they don't stick us out in an open air area. So I hadn't even thought about that.
Not really sure.
Got me thinking about all kinds of things now. All right, let's get to Auburn. They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory again on Saturday against Oklahoma. What did you make of that game? And now they've got Hugh Freeze with I didn't know if he was coaching a football team or stumping at a political rally on Monday at his press conference. And now they got to go to a Georgia team that's going to be in a bad mood. What do you make of the situation Auburn's in at 2-3 and 0-2 in the SEC after 5 straight home games to open the season?
Well, I fed you back that opening statement, and I had to feed it back to you in 4 parts because it was so long.
Yep.
It was 8.5 minutes long, and it was passionate. It was directed, to the fan base, to be patient, and certainly patience has been required of this Auburn fan base so far this year. They're 2-3, but Gary, some people laugh at me when I say this. They're 3 plays from being 5-0. I mean, if they hadn't turned the ball over as many times as they have in those 2 losses, I mean, they easily could be 5-0. So, we'd be talking a different story right now. But I think there's a lot of positive vibes, from the program in the last 24 hours because of the Deuce Knight commitment, yesterday. The quarterback from Mississippi who flipped from Notre Dame to Auburn. And I think that's kind of, that's energized them there, I think. It's energized the fan base. I think it's energized the football team that, that 8.5 minute, monologue, that Hugh did, it kind of rang true, patience. They're recruiting really well, and they're keeping this class together. They haven't had, any flips that I can think of really. So I think they're headed in a good direction, although the 1-loss record doesn't indicate so.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you say hold it together. You're 5 games in. I'll be interested if they keep losing. What happens? I mean, maybe it won't impact them. And I get the juice you get from a recruiting class, and you get the energy you get from a big quarterback commitment. But that does nothing for them this season on the field. So I'm not trying to cover up what you're saying.
They could be 2-6 after October.
Yeah, I'm not trying to cover up at all what you're saying, but at some point, results matter. And you can't just, the problem with building for the future, at some point it can't be about the future. At some point it's got to be about right now. But we'll see what they do at Georgia. Hey, I want to ask you, because, you're my UAB go-to guy, and it's hard to get UAB fans riled up, but Trent Dilfer has managed to do it, in addition to not having a very good team and a good season so far. That we're not freaking Alabama comment at the press conference, because I think he was upset there were so few people there, and he wanted his grandson to come up and sit up there with him at the table. But he's, I saw Kevin Skarbinski's got a column out about it. He stirred him up over there, man. What's going on? Trent Dilfer right now, is not a very popular, head coach among his fan base.
Well, look, and I'm going to defend Trent on this. It wasn't a comment. It wasn't a shot at his own program.
No, it wasn't. I
mean, come on. And it was just a remark that look, we're not as strict about that stuff here, as maybe Alabama is. I mean, you couldn't envision, Kalen DeBoer bringing, he doesn't have any grandchildren yet, but bringing his grandson up there right by the podium while he's doing the thing. I mean, you couldn't imagine that, at Alabama. And I look, and I heard it, and I go, yeah, I know UAB people are getting really upset about this. And it was approached, to him in the press conference about it, and it got a little, contentious. And Trent just said, look, I meant no ill will. And then he explained it, just like he intended for it to sound, and it's one of those things like, you know what, if you're 4-0, it may never be a blip on the radar, but it's amazing if you're 1-3.
Oh yeah.
Every little mistake you make, every little wrong foot that you put forward, is just taken way, way, way out of context. So I'm cutting Trent some slack on this one.
Yeah, and I'm with you too. But at the same time, they got the one win over Alcorn State, who's awful, and their losses have been, one-sided. In fact, the most competitive game they played that they lost was at Arkansas. Monroe blew them out of the water, and then and down in Louisiana, then Navy came in there and ran them to death at home. So now you go to Tulane, I'm sorry, that's a home game against Tulane on Saturday. They need a win. Like Auburn.
Yeah, they do. They do. And Navy came in, and Navy's a good football team. I mean, they're undefeated, and they came in. But it was just painful to watch their defense and how poorly they tackle and how poorly they cover, in the secondary. And, Navy's never been known for throwing the football around. But, late in the first half, they threw like a 73-yard touchdown pass. And it was, and they got whatever they wanted against the UAB defense. They came into their place and they took whatever they wanted, from that UAB defense. So he didn't really make any wholesale changes, on the defensive side of the ball in terms of coaching, and that could have been a mistake, because the defense has just been not good, the first 4 games. So I don't know how many games, they're going to win. I'm not a fortune teller when it comes to that stuff, but certainly, he's behind the 8 ball right now, and as is athletic director Mark Ingram.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jeff, I got to get out of here, but kind of let everybody know about what you got going on and where they can find you.
Appreciate you. At Speaks 3340. And then, we've got the Zone coming up Sunday. And as you mentioned, the EOG wrap coming up after the Tennessee.
Download the free Upside app and use promo code YEAR for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code YEAR for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
365 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow truck, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadway.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure you're safe on the road. Now we need your help to make sure we're safe too.
Alabama's move over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the roadside. And if you can't safely move over, please slow down.
Visit DriveSafeAlabama.org, brought to you by the Alabama Department of Transportation, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
The Alabama Securities Commission protects you from financial fraud. Anyone asking you for investment money must be licensed. You're careful with your money. Fraudsters aren't. Before you invest, call our hotline at 1-800-222-1253 to verify the licensing of the person making an offer and the product. Don't lose your hard-earned money. Learn to protect yourself at asc.alabama.gov. Paid for by the Investor Protection Trust and brought to you by the Alabama Broadcasters Association and this station.
Alabama Crimson Tide lives right here.
Down to the pylon. Touchdown, Alabama.
On Tide 100.9.
All right, 10:54. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. Hey, homecomings for high school football are here. Homecoming games. So we already had a number of them. We got a number coming up tomorrow night. We'll have more throughout October. And you young gentlemen out there, if you want to look your best for homecoming, if you're part of the homecoming court, I encourage you to get by and see Tom and the guys at T-Town Menswear in University Mall, because they can hook you up. Just like for the prom. Same thing for homecoming, man. If you want to look like $1 million, T-Town Menswear and T-Town Gallery in the University Mall. Get by and see them. And, of course, they're the sponsor for our Bama Football Trivia Contest, which we will have tomorrow. By the way, I'll be back live at the Innisfree Irish Pub in the morning at 9 a.m. for part of our Fridays at the Free to kick off your game week. I know there's no home game, but I'll still be there Friday morning at 9 a.m. at Innisfree to get it all going. So slide on by. Like I said, if you're there a little early, they don't open till 11, but if you slide in that side door, we can hang out for a little bit. can't eat or drink until 11, but if you want to swing on by, we'll make a little room for you. So I'm looking forward to that tomorrow morning, and we'll give away another great full color print courtesy of T-Town Menswear and T-Town Galvin University Mall in our Bama football trivia contest. That's coming up tomorrow morning. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. I want to thank all of our great guests. We had, of course, D. Orlando Ledbetter, Ellis Johnson, and Jeff Spiegel. A reminder, catch me on TV tonight with your local sports on WVOA 23. And I guess if you can't get us right now until our tower transmitter's fixed, you can watch us on our app. You can watch us on the live stream at WVOA23.com. And just be patient with us. We're trying to get all that fixed. It's just going to take a while. It is a major, major repair. All right, T-Town Sports Daily is coming up next at 11 a.m. Then it's the Miller's Edge at noon and Fowler with the game from 2 until 6. I'll be back tomorrow morning, as I said, live from Industry Irish Pub with the Friday edition, the TGIF edition of the Gary Harris Show. Talk to you then. Have a great day, everybody.